Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Alundra. On the docket today, saving Klein from whatever was eating away at his soul, and joy of joys, apparently his subconscious is coated in ice, because, you know, this game was already pretty well established to have really precise platforming, right? So, you know, impeding our mobility by adding ice physics is just going to make it a better experience, right? Totally wrong. Oh, and on top of that, the first door is one of those doors where you enter going up, and then you exit going down, so if you're still holding up, you go back in, just like I did there. We're off to a great start already. Now, the game has a really ham-fisted implementation of ice physics. I guess because ice doesn't appear that much in the game overall, they didn't really bother to accurately model inertia like a lot of games do. Realistically, all that ice does is implement a small delay in your commands. So basically, if you're trying to move, like right there, you'll just stall out until the game decides to actually take your commands seriously and let Alundra move. It's pretty obnoxious, all things considered, and of course, the actual application of obstacles in the ice areas is pretty haphazard. So, yeah, we've got a long and fun trip ahead of us. Here's another annoying one. After hitting all three of these switches, only the middle door opens, even though there are doors at the end of all three of these little channels. So you have to go all the way back up and down if you hadn't known this beforehand, and of course I did, but, you know, forgot or chose to ignore it. Moving into the greater courtyard of Klein's nightmare, we've got basically a bunch of obstacles that look really similar, trees and rocks, and we're supposed to, while also dealing with the ice physics, avoid all of them. It's really not well designed at all, it doesn't really come together, there's random spike balls all over the place, and when the screen is moving, it's kind of difficult to tell exactly where you're supposed to be going, where you can move through and what you can't. It gets a little easier if you use your weapon a lot, which means you'll cut down all of the grass, so at the very least, you won't stop in front of a piece of grass thinking it's a rock, but in general, progress through this overall outer area is pretty slow. What we want to get to is down here on the bottom, the save point, and we'll be heading back here a lot because we're going to take a lot of incidental damage going through this area. Just letting you know beforehand, spoiler alert. So it's important to know where the health and magic refills are. Now that we're using the magic all that much, I will at some point find a good place to show off the water scroll. Now is not that place, and much like Bonaire's Dream, the boss for this level is not particularly well suited for showing off magic. It's got sort of a special case damage formula. It's a different sort of fight. You'll see what I mean when we get there. In any case, you'll notice we have all these towers, and this one's closed, but we can open a couple of them by entering a cave in the back wall of the area. Thankfully, even though that this little walkway is suspended over a chasm, we can't fall off the side. I guess is one thing the game decided not to make entirely aggravating in this particular level. Getting inside, we get to the first non-ice-based puzzle. You'll see that we have these switches and this little rock and a bunch of staircases. I'm not really sure what the meaning of these sliding ice pillars are for. I didn't actually use them. The point of this puzzle is that the rock always rolls in whatever direction the switch is pointed at, and I guess the pillars give you a little breathing room where the rock won't fall off the side, forcing you to start all over again, which, believe me, is a pain in the butt. We did, in fact, come incredibly close to dropping the rock off the side right there, and in fact, it took me 3 or 4 tries just to get this right. The rock will also stop as soon as it hits anything and won't keep rolling until you change the direction, so all in all, it's not too difficult to manage. These guys are gargoyles. You'll recognize them from the Sarah Succubus fight. They're basically the same enemy sprites, except an entirely different pattern of attack. I assume this is why the Sarah Succubus went down in one bomb, because in general, regular enemies in the game go down in a single bomb hit, and since Sarah used the same sprite as a regular bomb enemy, or the same model rather, they must have just not coded her to be resistant to the instant death from the bomb attack. Anyway, it's pretty evident what their attack pattern is. They just teleport a lot. It's very annoying, but as long as you keep attacking them and stay aggressive, they're not terribly threatening. We'll use the sword here. It's generally our most effective attack, and it will take down pretty much every enemy in the dungeon in a single charge attack. The only challenge with the gargoyle enemies is just catching them before they teleport away. You basically have to get them in the middle of an attack animation. Talking to this woman refills our health and allows us to begin the next puzzle, which is basically just hit a bunch of switches to cause these columns to rise up, forming a bridge over to the other side of the room. This I thought was the 4th switch, but in fact it just makes the 4th switch appear. You'd think that I would notice that the 4th column didn't rise up and that a switch fell down right above me, but I guess, I don't know, I must be retarded or something. Plus, you know, I actually assumed that something would happen with respect to that platform over there, the one that I just missed, but no, yes, I already hit the switch, no need to check it a second time. God, I'm so freaking stupid. Moving on, this is yet another platforming segment that you basically address the same way you would normally address all of these, where the platforms are slightly offset, where you just sort of position Alundra in between the two sort of horizontal tiles and try and jump straight. It's actually pretty easy, all things considered. I'm just making it look difficult because I'm being an idiot. There we go. Now it's correct. Now I finally saw that fourth switch, and we can jump across like we're supposed to. But of course, you've got to pick up this treasure chest, and this is another one of those weird perspective things where the chest is a little bit lower, or actually significantly lower, than the actual platform, so it's really easy to miss if you're not doing it correctly. Let me tell you, this particular type of platform in this game definitely comes to a head in this level. You'll see what I mean as we progress through. But we definitely wanted that chest because it does contain the Gilded Falcon, and getting it out of the way now means we don't have to go looking for it later, knowing that there's exactly one in every dungeon, and we've already found the one for Klein's Nightmare. It's part of the reason why I chose this room first. Hitting this switch opens a couple of doors, basically allows us to get into the other towers. So let's go do that. The structure of this level is fairly open-ended. We're basically looking for 3 keys that allow us access to the boss room. And there are 3 towers, ergo there's a key in each tower, and we'll have to explore and solve some puzzles in each one. Now that we've opened the center tower, we can, the switch itself actually opened the center door, which we saw close as we were moving around earlier. Let's go check that place out. So this is the first place where the platforming really rears its ugly head in this particular level, aside from that last cave where I just sort of stupidly made it look difficult when it was actually pretty easy. Notice that there's these scaffold that the platforms themselves are held up by this scaffolding that really obscures where you're trying to go. You know, it would be too easy, I guess, to actually allow you to see the platforms you're on. I actually had fallen off when I walked into that spike ball and just not realized it. So yeah, like, it doesn't really look like you can even walk down here. It looks like you're supposed to move to the left from there. At least, that's how it looks from my perspective. But no, you're supposed to go basically under another platform and around. So yeah, a lot of incidental damage is going to be taken. Again, the spike balls only do 1 point of damage, and they've always done 1 point of damage, independent of the fact that we picked a better armor. Yeah, that descending spike ball, yeah, apparently it falls on that platform as opposed to any of the other platforms. I had no idea. There's no depth perception in this level. Basically feeling my way through here. And oh yeah, I almost jumped off the bottom as opposed to up top because I didn't realize that was a platform and not the background. And of course, some more spike balls, and one more for good measure, right in the middle of the platform, just like the finger in the middle of my hand that I'm giving the game right now. You can't see it, but I promise it's right there. Alright, so, again, incidental damage, time to go back to the save point and top off. Thank God we found that early, thank God it's right there. So, let's move on. We've got 2 more towers to go, and I promise, the other 2 towers in the game do focus quite a bit more on puzzle solving as opposed to obtuse platforming, so it should be a little bit more fun to go through them. So let's start on the right. One other small saving grace is that even though you can see those large slopes, you don't actually have to do anything unusual. Considering what you'd expect in ice levels, you'd expect it to be really hard to get up a slope. You're probably used to, like, sliding puzzles where you have to get up on top somewhere and use the momentum to fall off, you know, and slide up. But that doesn't really happen here. You can just move normally. Shocking, I know, that this game actually gives you a break on that. So, sliding ice pillars. We saw these in the, one of the previous areas, but now we actually have to use them to solve puzzles. There's going to be a lot of areas in this tower where you're basically going to have to sit the pillars on every switch but one, obviously the last one you hit yourself, and basically the puzzles revolve around, you know, standard positioning of sliding block puzzles. Again, there's not too much I can say here because for most of the puzzles I actually already know the answer, so you're not going to sit and watch me sort of puzzle it out. You know, there's not a lot of internal logic to ice blocks. There's not really a lot of, you know, clever intuition you have to develop. It's just a matter of understanding what moves you can make. And this is definitely that sort of puzzle. So I'm going to take a minute here. The progression when I actually solve these puzzles is a little slow. Yeah, that's the one switch we're supposed to hit with Alundra. It's pretty obvious because obviously we can slide the blocks on every switch but that one because it's raised from the ground. You have to be really careful here because obviously this is the sort of puzzle where you can wind up pushing a pillar onto the wall where you can't move it anymore. And in fact, the controls for the pillars are a little finicky. It's very easy to wind up accidentally hitting a pillar while you're trying to move around it. And in fact, if I happen to be moving really slowly on one of these puzzles, it's probably because I was trying to avoid making that mistake. So yeah, see, not too difficult. But remember there was a treasure chest also in the previous room, and how do we access it? Well, you see this middle tomb here has a crack in it compared to the one on the left and the right, so we jump in it 3 times, just like the generator in the coal mine. We can drop through to the previous floor. This is another one of those delayed switch puzzles. You can see, actually, this tower in general, compared to everything else in this level, is really well designed because it makes fairly nice use of a number of basic puzzles that we've already sort of seen as we've progressed through the game at large. So it's a nice way to put everything together that we learned in the game so far. And we are duly rewarded with our 21st life vessel, and now we have 2 large heart containers up top to signify the fact that we've, you know, crossed over into the 3rd decade of heart containers. Yeah, here's another type of puzzle we're going to see in this dungeon, using the columns as platforms to progress in the actual platforming challenges. Again, without the ice physics, the platforming gets more manageable as long as it's not obscuring our vision like it was in the scaffolding area. Okay, so this is probably the most difficult puzzle that we're going to see in this particular video. There's 8 of these ice columns and very few actual landmarks in the level, so there's really a lot of trial and error involved in this particular puzzle, because there's no, I don't know, there's nothing that leads the eye. You know, there's nothing that tells you this is where I should maybe consider shoving the first ice column. And frankly, the guide I was using as a backup numbered the columns from 1 to 8 clockwise, but that numbering becomes completely useless once you actually move the columns, because now they're completely out of order. So I had to take a lot of notes, and I had to do this puzzle really tentatively, because again, it's really easy to screw up and have to force yourself to wind up starting all over again. So yeah, there's a little bit of a tease there. It makes you feel like you solved the puzzle. You know, you can hear the switch moving for the first time, but then it just goes right by. Again, it took me about 8 or 9 tries to get this right, even with the use of a solution manual, and having played this game 2 times before. So, I mean, I guess I can't really give any hints in this particular puzzle, it's just really obtuse. I guess it's kind of fun, you know, it's a real puzzle, yeah, there's nothing annoying about it, it's just really complicated. I could see this being the sort of thing that I could spend about half an hour on and still fail at, but, you know, whatever. The important thing is we got it now, don't have to deal with that again. And that gave us the second of the 3 keys, so now we've only got 1 tower left to solve before we can proceed to the boss room. So, let's go do that. Again, we have to navigate the courtyard, which so far has been basically the most hazardous portion of this entire level. I mean, we basically have to go all the way across it now. Yeah, see, it would be much nicer if I could actually destroy those ice blocks. Like, looking at that particular area, the one that I just jumped over, you would almost think if you didn't know that you could jump over those, or you know, that it was impossible, knowing that it was impossible to destroy them, you might actually think that you'd need to solve something to get through to that area of the dungeon, but in fact you could just jump. I don't know why they're even there. It's weird. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. At this point I finally realized that jumping a lot is a really good way to stop myself from developing inertia in directions I don't want it to go in. Speaking of inertia, here's another one of these puzzles. Remember these from Lars's Crypt. And again, I'm going to be really careful here, because I want to make sure I get on the exact right set of arrows. Again, I'm tracing them with my eye before I move on to each one, so that's part of the reason why I'm stopped. It's actually pretty simple. It's pretty, considering you only basically have 4 choices at most points, it's pretty easy, again, just to follow each line with your eye and make sure that you make the correct choice. That at the very least leads you back to another open spot and not back to the start. Also, thankfully, the game locks you into a path once you choose one. You don't run the risk of accidentally falling onto the wrong path if you're too close to one edge or the other edge when you jump on an arrow. Got some new enemies here. These are ice phantoms. Again, they're pretty straightforward. They're pretty weak. They materialize. They're much easier to deal with than the gargoyles. They shoot their hands at you. They take 2 hits to kill. Nothing terribly exciting. Moving up to the next floor, again, we have to use these ice columns, basically for platforming. And this is, you know, another one of those rooms where the perspective comes back to bite us, as we'll see in a second. That hovering platform over there looks like it's in a really advantageous place, but it actually immediately falls straight to the ground as soon as you jump on it. So let's kill these pucuses. Nice to see some enemies that are actually easy to kill around here, as opposed to the gargoyles or something really annoying like the phantoms. So yeah, let's check out this platform. It does fall to the ground. We do need it to get up on the column, because the platform does have the height of one object when we jump on it. And here we go. Where's that 3rd column? It's actually behind the wall. See, right there, right where I'm jumping. See, I can't jump any further? And you can actually hear the column sliding against the platform. You can't actually see it. You just have to be aware of the fact that it's right there. It's not necessary for this sort of thing to happen. You'd think that the game designers would have taken this into account and given you some sort of visual clue, or maybe an extra block there to allow the platform to sit somewhere where it wouldn't be obscured by the back wall, but no, I guess not. This puzzle, again, is fairly straightforward. We're basically just chasing the switch around. I actually don't know if this puzzle is timed or not. It never came up. It's pretty easy to do. You might have to tank a few hits, But again, we're getting close to the end of this tower, and we'll have the ability to return to the save point pretty soon after this, so there's no real worry. There's a chest right there, but that's actually the key, so we'll be going back to get that later. Also, can't leave without smashing pots. Gotta take that into account. Here's more of those Ice Phantom guys. Again, at this point I really don't care about them because they can't follow us. Check it out, it's another one of those moving platforms. You might be fooled into thinking that you actually can't move toward the center platform, but for some weird reason, these arrow platforms actually allow you to move against the grain. It's really weird. Now we make a blind jump onto this platform, and you can miss. You actually have to jump. If you just walk off, you'll miss. It's really obnoxious. As if there weren't enough problems with the fact that the game's perspective is screwed up to begin with. Now they have us making completely blind jumps that are also non-intuitive. In any case, oh, and making our way back out of this tower, we have to do this puzzle again, and by that I mean we have to do it in reverse. And I mean, you basically choose any path but the one that you know leads to the exit, and you'll eventually get there, but it's still really stupid and annoying. But no matter, we picked up our 3 keys, and so that's nice. You know, next we'll take on the boss. So I believe we've recorded enough for today, so we'll finish off Klein's Nightmare and see if we can save Klein on the next episode of Let's Play Alundra. Save my game, and I will see you then.